How can Americans afford to live? I see minutes wages so low and rent is so high. I really don't understand. Anyone care to explain? 2 jobs, roommate, no kids, being in a relationship for financial reasons, not investing in self, education, health, retirement, is how a lot of Americans afford to survive. I'm not sure about the ones actually living. I haven't gotten to do that yet. Oh yay, my retirement plan is probably won't live that long anyway. Currently about 10k in debt for just living expenses, hoping to catch up with income tax refund then start the miserable cycle again. We literally have 1 million homeless people and another million in jails and prisons. In some US states 1% of the adult population is jailed or imprisoned at any given time. The reason COVID is destroying the US labor market is because millions of US adults had fragile jobs or living situations that collapsed when one person in their job or home life became disabled. In short, American cannot afford to live any sort of reasonable standard of life. Double those numbers fam. We had 500,000 homeless pre-pandemic. Just about 2.2 million prisoners. Don't forget the 8-10 million on subsidized housing who wouldn't have homes if forced to pay the market rate for their dwellings. We really have closer to about 12 million homeless or near homeless, plus the incarcerated folks. Terrifying when you look at it that way. We don't. A lot people like me are homeless. Then we can't get a job because places want a phone number or an address. I'm tired of living like this. I'm tired of not eating. I have an old beat up phone. I'll leech off free Wi-Fi spots so I can occasionally check in with people on social media. People living in tents, RVs and cars becoming pretty normal. They also live with family members. I have 2 teens. One is 19 who will be living at home until who knows when. I don't mind. He is a good kid. I'm a disabled veteran. The burn pits took my lungs, not the Taliban or AQ. I worked in a hospital, and we washed the litters the wounded came in on across from the burn pits. I was National Guard and just joined to get out of Southern California's rent trap in the early 2000s. Find some upward mobility away from hunger, and learn a valuable skill set. I'm 100% permanently and totally disabled. Due to the benefits I've been able to buy a home and provide for my family. I don't know how I would otherwise. EMTs, my civilian equivalency, make $12.50 to $15 HR. Not nearly enough to get figuratively and literally crap on. I'm sorry. We don't. We end up with high credit card bills. We can't fix our cars. We stay in relationships even if toxic. We sell ourselves. So many things. It's not worth it. I'm starting to realize it's better to live with parents if you can until you make good money, than just invest that into simple living. Move out of the country or buy a van and live in it. We live with 5 people that we barely know and usually hate but have to tolerate. Never have your own peace and space. It's horrible. Yep, coming home on Sunday from the store, expecting to be able to do my meal prep over the next couple hours, only to find the kitchen completely and totally destroyed. Dishes all in the sink, garbage all over the countertops. I couldn't do it anymore. We can't. I live in a college town. When I moved here 5 years ago, rent for the 1BD1 bar 650 square FT apartment I lived in was $1,375. They arbitrarily raised it to $1,500. No repairs or renovations or upgrades were done and I hadn't trashed the place because when I moved out, can't afford $1,500 a month on a grad student stipend. I got the entire deposit back. I now share an 850 square FT apartment with one other person for a total of $1,800 a month. 3 of my 4 siblings live at home and all of them work 2 jobs each, but that isn't enough to get out of my parents' home. Literally one sister, her baby daddy and her son live all with my parents. We are all freaking miserable and struggling to keep our heads above water while knowing it's a meaningless struggle because we'll never fully get out of the water. Guarantee that 30 years from now I'll drink myself to death in a rented apartment that 50% of my income goes to. My 70-year-old housemate will find my corpse and my family will be billed $500,000 for my ambulance ride. Why is this so accurate? Honestly, no freaking idea. At 18 I made $9 an hour, now I make 32 and honestly it feels like I'm in the same freaking spot. Never ending debt. But hey, actually at 9 an hour I had to steal to eat, so everything is looking up. Dang, I felt bad at $7.75. I live at my folks at 38. Most of the people I know live with multiple people or are married living together, possibly with more roommates. We're literally like chickens in the cooperative. On the flip side of that coin, you have young 20-somethings at my local university paying $3K a month for an apartment, $40K a year on tuition, and still living like kings and queens. We can't. We have flatmates. We have to stay in toxic families or marriages, relationships longer than anyone should because the other alternative is homelessness. And it's a death sentence. We work ourselves to death. We spend hours trying to get to jobs where we are treated as dirt and told we should be grateful. Then when our health breaks down, we're told it's our fault. Literally moved back in my family and it's actual heck, but $1,300 for a 1-bedroom is batshit insane. I can't do it. Sad reality is that the USA is not that far off of some of these movies you see, where corporations rule, put up massive apartments and the people in them have no money or freedom, their lives controlled by the corporations. The rich have everything and do everything. There is no middle. We don't. We go from eviction to eviction, buy our food from paycheck to paycheck. We take on massive amounts of debt to maintain a basic standard of living. And at the end of the month, we wonder if it's going to be enough next month. We cry a lot. We starve a lot. I feel you. You're among people who understand. If you need to be, you can DM or something, haha. I work and live with a friend from high school. We got scholarship for college, but afterwards didn't have openings in our field, so we both work at an urgent care clinic. He's had medical training, so he makes a few bucks more. We don't have cable, rarely go out to eat, and our pastimes are normally free or inexpensive. Miso is a teacher and has lived with her parents through college and work. We get by, but I would be completely out of line if I said it was on my own. My parents gave me a jump start that would have been impossible, but I'm glad to say I am finally paying the bills. There are so many people that didn't have the start I did, and I think that it is absurd when others disregard the iniquity coursing through my city, state, and nation, as well as plenty of other places. I'm 38 and currently living in an old butt RV in my friend's driveway. Lost both of my jobs at the beginning of the pandemic. Just a quick thing about this. We are human beings, we are the smartest things on this planet. There shouldn't be homeless people at all. There never should have been. It makes no sense. There are thousands of solutions to this problem, yet the people in charge just let people live on the streets begging for food money like animals. It's so heartbreaking, and I don't even like people, but I think each and every single one should have the basic necessities at the very least. Humans can be greedy. Roommates splitting living costs, help from parents with insurance and phone bills etc depending on age, but that stuff's only for the lucky ones. Even with those types of resources, it's kind of a barely making it by, really unfulfilled, doing the most you can to keep yourself floating type of thing. Debt, and a broken approach to work passed from generation to generation. An excerpt from a quote of Alan Watts: "What do you desire? But it's absolutely stupid to spend your time doing things you don't like in order to go on doing things you don't like and to teach your children to follow in the same track." See, what we're doing is we're bringing up children, educating them to live the same sort of lives we're living in order that they may justify themselves and find satisfaction in life by bringing up their children to bring up their children to do the same thing. So it's all wretch and no vomit. It never gets there. Not well. I have been very fortunate to have older family who own property, so I can rent from them, skipping the outrageous rent prices and evil landlords. I'm honestly not sure how people without solutions like this are getting by. I already skip medical care a lot due to costs. It's very sad. Because federal state minutes wage jobs are not full-time. People on the low end of the economic scale need 5x part-time jobs to pay their bills and have nothing left over at a month's end, which is why the food accommodation sector is scrambling for people. When one person leaves for a FT job, they leave not 1 but 3x plus openings behind them. Never thought of it that way. That makes so much more sense. Tent cities are new neighborhoods all over the country and they are only growing. The cops brutalize and displace them and they have everything stolen and trashed, even new donated things by police, and city workers then have to start over on a different block. I saw this movie. Everyone was brainwashed and enslaved by aliens and you needed special glasses to see the propaganda of the slave owners for what it was. It was rather heavy-handed. We literally drag ourselves to multiple jobs and run ourselves ragged just to barely make it. We get sick a lot because of this. And given that we don't have anything remotely good in the way of healthcare, a lot of treatable illnesses go untreated and eventually led to us being even more in debt. As already been stated, 10x is over. We can't. However, I'm lucky in that our house is paid for, but my youngest, not so much. As empty nesters, we are now converting our basement into an apartment, rent-free shared household chores for her so she can keep her expenses to a bare minimum, giving her the time to build a solid credit rating. Unfortunately, many Americans can't even afford to do that for their kids and really shouldn't have to. Capitalism has run its cycle and will crash soon enough. Pathetic for sure, but if having one or all my kids at home is the worst thing that happens, I'm doing alright. Many countries outside of the US have families of different generations under one roof, but mostly in the US is often seen as a negative. In many countries, parents beg, for lack of a better term, their sons and daughters to not leave home. And while I think it's okay to see people wanting to be independent, I also see nothing wrong in a healthy family wanting to stick together. I'm a 55-year-old US Navy veteran. I haven't had a job for over 14 months. I've applied at over 100 jobs and got 1 interview and 4 rejection letters. I gave up looking because something wasn't right. They kept saying people don't want to work but didn't complete the sentence. The narrative should have been people don't want to work for crap wages. They put out job openings they have no intention of filling because they want cheap labor and to fulfill their repayment obligations on the bailouts they took from us. It's frankly disgusting. Americans will say thank you for your service, then turn their backs and laugh at you or tell you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I've started companies as an entrepreneur and I don't turn down many options to make money when I can. If I hadn't got into cryptocurrency 5 years ago, I would likely be dead right now. Decentralized communities are my country now. I've emancipated myself from Uncle Scam and his cronies. Short version. You get 3 people into a 2-bedroom apartment. One of them sleeps on the couch, and all 3 work 80 hours a week, and do their best to keep their schedules out of sync so that no one is interrupting the few hours of sleep the others get. This is how Americans survive. They then learn to not worry about actually living because when you're one missed paycheck from being homeless, any time spent doing things that prevent your brain from thinking become good things. By choosing between one debt or the other, I don't know how a lot of people get by here. I consider myself very fortunate. I finally bought a house a year ago and checked in with my old apartments to see how much rent has gone up. It's $20 less than my mortgage. You'd say everyone should just buy a house and you'd be right, but saving the money needed to get a house, well, that's a whole different story. Yeah, I know many people renting a studio apartments with no bedrooms, and then using dividers to create rooms in those situations. Live in the Midwest where cost of living is actually far less and lots of places are hiring, especially in technical fields. People call us the flyover states, but it's way cheaper to live here than on the coasts. Still only make $13 per hour and live with my sister cause 13 still can't afford an apartment on my own. Not the most compelling argument. Try the Midwest, it's cheaper. Although I do still have to live with my sibling because it's too expensive. Looking at these comments, I cannot fathom how anyone has the gall to crap on you for making America bad comments or posts. It is bad, and we need to talk strategy to fix it. My husband and I live with a roommate. I have health issues so I don't work so I can get Medicare, which leaves us strapped. So it's not really living, more surviving. Multiple jobs and roommates. If you work 2 30-hour-a-week jobs for $8 HR, smidge over minutes wage, you'll bring home about $1,700 after taxes. If you paid $400 more in transportation, car note, ins, gas, $50 phone, $250 in groceries, $200 misc, you'd have about $800 left over, which could maybe pay 1/3 of rent, electric, internet, and water in an average apartment. Unfortunately, you also don't have health insurance, lol. Crushing debt, never owning a home, being okay with driving half broke down cars that may or may not leave you on the side of the road, trying to figure out how far you can stretch a 20-count pack of ramen so that you can pay at least half the light bill so it doesn't get cut off. The classical answer is charity. If you're busting hump at 2-3 jobs, putting in 60 hours at minimum wage. Another wonderful trick, 20-hour part-time jobs everywhere, so you can't get benefits or overtime. You live in a closet, or with 5 other people in a mid-sized apartment and either have bunk beds or hot bunk. Someone sleeps in your bed while you work, etc. On top of that, you are on food stamps and visit the local food pantry weekly. You end up only working a single shift somewhere most weeks for one day. So say, Thursday, you only have a morning shift. You go to the food bank for the week, do your grocery shopping there first, and then take your food stamps to fill in the holes. I've done this for the past 4 months. There are usually local consortiums to pay most or part of rent, heat, water, electricity. They're all grants given in part by the local government, and in part by charitable contributions. I currently have $1,000 of my electricity paid for. My apartment has heat and water included, or it would have been split between them all. I was a hair away from having my rent paid through one of these, but managed to secure a job, and my landlord's cool letting me slide a few months because I've been perfect for 4 years. It's incredibly depressing in ways I cannot tell you. Basically, because wages are so low, taxes take care of the makeup, but they make you feel like crap for taking it with constant, non-stop questions about your worthiness. And, if you think about it, it's basically subsidizing the low wages the employers are paying. They don't pay a living wage, so people must rely on the taxpayer to do so. We all pay for them to eat. Look, I'm employed again, I'll literally start tomorrow. I'm happy to pay for these programs because I do not want people unhomed, without heat in Minnesota, or without food. I have no problems helping those who need it, but the fact that greedy businesses are basically using it to pad their bottom line infuriates me to no end. The system must change. Over 1 million people have died from COVID here. Disabled, BIPOC and queer trans people are considered less than trash to the govt, expendable and not worth stopping work for. There's no money to pay folks to stay home in the pandemic, but literal trillions more this year for corporate bailouts and the military. Folks have to do GoFundMe for paying rent and bills, have to live in their cars or a van in a friend's yard. The police harass and house people for sport, so folks have to put themselves in more dangerous situations to get away from them, such as stay with an abusive partner who eventually kills them. They can freeze to death or overheat depending on the area. It's very, very bleak. Trans man here who is yelled at by doctors that I should be on disability. Yet the process is so convoluted that I have to keep working and risking my life both as a trans man and someone with a compromised immune system so that my widowed mother and younger siblings can still have a roof over our heads. It's horrible and I feel like a burden to everyone. Credit card debt, medical debt, student loan debt, roommates, putting off starting a family, praying nobody you love gets injured or badly sick. It's no way to live, and leaving is almost impossible. Putting off starting a family. This is not transitory, you will never be able to start a family. The superinflation you are experiencing will evolve into hyperinflation. Easy, you don't. Just hope you can bulls your way into a bulls job that pays a livable income by acting like you're passionate about whatever bulls industry it is. Or cough up the money to go through bulls college so you can show people that you have a bulls piece of paper. We can't. If I wanted an apartment in this state, it's a comfortable little 1,300 plus for a 1-bedroom. So instead, people live 4 and 5 to a 2-bedroom place. That's about all I see out here besides old retired PPL or shithead NY commuters bringing bad NY politics over here. Minimum wages and minimum wage everywhere. NYS has a minimum wage of $15. Still not livable, but still better than the federal minimum wage. Even in Dallas you need $26 an hour to afford basic necessities. $15 in NYSP change. I can't. I live with my parents until I can move to another country, trying to learn foreign languages to get out of here. Not having children, not carrying enough insurance, applying for federal food stamps and medical, living with parents, and crime. We can't. The homeless encampment in my town is entire, multiple boulevards long now. For reference, it was a small part of a block before 2020. Debt. Majority of people are in debt until they die. This is not the best country in the world, as some claim it to be. Frick this crap show of a country. My friend's rent is split 3-way. She pays $1,250 a month just for rent. She lives outside of Manhattan for cheaper rent but in a neighborhood she can walk through a little more comfortably than her previous gross one. Her yearly salary is $40K, Manhattan. We aren't living. We are existing, continuing to fill the coffers of the people hoarding wealth. We exist to pay taxes, press the button and keep the money machine running. Can't really. My spouse and I have to live with my grandmother and when she dies we'll be homeless BC. We can't afford to live on our own. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.